you, Cindy. Thank you.
Hopefully this was on.
Yes, it is.
All right, well, thanks so much to the BIRA board for convening this forum. As you said, it's one of our first gatherings like this, a long time in coming and most appropriate. And it's gratifying to see all of you here interested in the housing issues that are before us. In the last few years, on a national and state level, the dialogue about the dire lack of affordable housing, its impact on our citizens' well-being, our economies, and the stability and health of our communities has taken center stage. Hardly a day goes by that you don't see something in the news about the need for affordable housing and the critical nature of affordable housing. So before we explore the island's current status and our future hopes and plans, BIRA asked me to provide a bit of an historical background context of how the housing movement began on Block Island. And many of you might be interested to know that Block Island was decades ahead of the state and the country in identifying and proactively addressing this issue. The island owes a great debt of thanks to the Block Island Economic Development Group, formerly, not formally, but was called BED. We used to refer to it as BED, Block Island Economic Development Group. It was the cause of a lot of jokes back in the day. I just got out of bed. Who did you go to bed with? But anyway, that's aside. But it was a great group, and this grassroots organization began in the 70s. You may recognize some of the founding fathers and mothers of that group. Ruth Oriel, Monica Shea, Mary Donnelly, Elliot Taubman, Ted and Lucy Martin, Tony Pappas. I hope I haven't omitted anybody. But now, Jerry, I think, was a little bit later. I think. But now, a trivia question. And past and present BED members are not eligible to respond. So, for 25,000 points, who can remember the impetus that formed that group? What event occurred that threatened the economic well-being of local residents? Anybody? No? All right, Tony, tell them.
A radio or electronic components part company from Connecticut fly over parts and people were shut in or couldn't do large physical work, would assemble these pieces and then they'd be collected the next week. The Rhode Island Department of Labor found out about this and closed it down.
Closed it down. So that was a really important home industry for a lot of Block Island families, because in the winter, back in the 70s and earlier, there wasn't much going on. So that home piecework was really important to people, and that source of income was removed, and so BED kind of stepped up to try to advocate on their behalf. Well, they didn't get too far negotiating with the state on that economic issue. But in the midst of those struggles, they realized that the other major component for long-term economic health was stable housing. So remember, this was back in the 70s. And as often happens with forward-thinking, visionary people, they were ahead of their time. It took 10 years of lobbying, searching for funding, getting shot down at the financial town meeting, convincing the rest of us to see the need and catch the vision for affordable housing. So through the generosity of the Ball O'Brien family, and you're going to hear that name come up repeatedly, and loans from the Farmers Home Administration, which is now the current Department of Agriculture, the East Earls Ball housing units were born. That was the first project. There's 16 low-income rental units located across from the Ian Court Beck playground on the west side. It was and continues to be the smallest development ever constructed with Farmers Home funding. The development has been continuously occupied, and those 16 rental units have provided much needed stable rental housing with federally subsidized rents. It is the only housing project out here that has federally subsidized rents. Today, 40 years later, and facing the reality of federal cuts, the high cost of maintenance, BED is really grappling with how to modernize those units, keep them viable, and improve them. So keep that on your radar. That struggle continues. But going back to the 80s, even then, the chance to be able to live and work on Block Island was out of reach for many people. Lots of wonderful families were slowly leaving the island because they could not find stable year-round housing. There was work, but there was no housing. So that American dream of home ownership that's been so important to many of us was out of reach for many. So, in conjunction with the Block Island Land Trust and Rhode Island Housing, BED followed up by constructing 7 single-family homes on Beacon Hill project. This project that conjoined the goals of affordable housing and land preservation was unique in the country, and it garnered national attention. And the island was actually the recipient of the 1994 Times Chevron Award for that endeavor. The homes were sold to financially qualified year-round residents chosen through a lottery system, a model that we continue to use today. In those days, according to state regulations for affordable housing, they were only deed restricted for 30 years. At the time, that seemed like forever. But lo and behold, here we are. 30 years is in the rearview mirror. It's impossible to know, but it's conceivable that some of those 7 homes, as each owner arrives at that 30-year mark of ownership, may be legally sold at market value and could be lost to our affordable housing pool. But the good news is the law has now changed, and affordable housing may be legally deed restricted in perpetuity. So any affordable housing that's happened after that is now restricted in perpetuity, and those units will remain in our affordable housing pool forever. Well, BED continued to forge ahead. They have 4 units on Pilot Hill, 8 townhouses at Harbor Meadow, plus the community center that we all enjoy, and as well as a space for the preschool. Quite an accomplishment. Then enter Mary Jane Balser. In conjunction with BED, and again with the generosity of the Ball O'Brien family, the land was acquired adjacent to East Earls Ball, and the West Side 20 were constructed. This was and remains the largest affordable housing development on Block Island. It took a number of years to bring this project to completion, and 20 year-round families owe Mary Jane and BED a great debt of thanks for their amazing efforts and their perseverance. So, by my count, BED has provided 55 units of affordable housing, a pioneering board with an astounding legacy. So, now our timeline brings us to the 90s. And remember, BED had no funding mechanism. They were totally dependent on federal and state loans and CBD grants, and they were very good at getting them. But those pockets of money have dried up with all the federal and state cuts. Then the state brought additional pressure to towns, and all communities were mandated to demonstrate that 10% of their housing stock was affordable. If not, local zoning rules could be ignored, suspended, and developers could propose and gain approvals for high-density developments if they included a few deed-restricted affordable units. So due to our community's proactive work, we were ahead of the majority of Rhode Island towns, and we did, in fact, meet that 10% minimum for a few years. But it is an elusive, moving target. And currently, the state considers us to have approximately 8% affordable housing stock, so we're still below that 10% bar. So, hence, the creation of the Block Island Housing Board in 2002, mandated to create more affordable housing opportunities for year-round residency. To create an income stream to help fund this activity, legislation was sought and obtained to levy a 1% tax on short-term vacation rentals. With a modest yearly income, we're now averaging about $200,000 a year, and the kindness and generosity of Moore Island folks, I'd like to give a shout out to Steve and Marianne Smith, Ellen Jackie, Josie Merck, and again, the Ball O'Brien family. The Housing Board has managed to construct and sell 5 homes at Cherry Hill, 2 on Coast Guard Road, resell and restrict as affordable in perpetuity 2 homes on Baker's Hill, and purchase a parcel of land off West Side Road, currently ready for construction. This was all accomplished without any outside funding, and the board is currently debt-free. You're going to hear more about our future dreams and our plans for our West Side Road parcel from our new chair, Mark McGuire. The Housing Board has enjoyed the steadfast support of previous and current town councils, the Planning Board, and the Zoning Board. Creating, financing, and constructing affordable housing is no easy task in these days of limited land, high prices, competition, inflation, and expensive building materials. The council and the boards have been diligent in seeking zoning and planning ordinances that foster affordable possibilities. And to that end, the creation of the 513 ordinance holds particular promise to create year-round housing opportunities, rental opportunities. Currently, there are 70 privately owned units being rented and 3 more in the pipeline. Under this ordinance, homeowners are allowed to create a rental unit within their own home, or convert an already existing building, or construct a new space, as long as they covenant to rent it on a year-round basis. These units are approved and tracked by the town. They are not income restricted, but they must be rented on a year-round basis to local residents. And this is really going to help ease that pressure of people looking for stable rental housing. In my opinion, it's one of the most cost-efficient ways to create affordable rental housing solutions, and as a byproduct, it can also fill some needs for homeowners, provide a needed income source, or create a space for caretakers, as many of us hope to age in place on the island. Other groups have stepped up to the challenge. The Harbor Church created 4 low-cost apartments to rent to islanders. Most recently, the Medical Center constructed housing to provide for their staffing needs. The town has completed 4 units of rental housing on the Thomas property, and happy folks are moving in as we speak. Soon we're going to hear from the Housing Initiative, an innovative group approaching the challenge from a different angle. Working on the problem of affordable housing has required the vision, the commitment, and the drive of local individuals. The focus of local government, the generosity of local benefactors, Block Islanders working together to create equity and housing opportunities for our community. We have a lot to be proud of, and we have a rich history to build on. Today, we continue to search out ways to keep Block Island a viable year-round community, to find the right balance of rental housing and home ownership opportunities, and to preserve a quality of community that we all cherish. It's been a great run, but there's more to do, and your support has made this happen. Thanks very much.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman, a few remarks.
You go.
Okay. First of all, Cindy, that was wonderful. You could be my advertiser anytime. You did a fantastic job. I want to thank you for that. And I want to just remind people that they did a lot more things than housing. Okay. Obviously, you know about the community center and what have you, but we started the Spring Street Gallery, and I think it's been a boon to the artists in this town. We started the farmers market, and that has been a boon to the town. And we had a few other things that we started and fell on our face on, we won't talk about. Like peat. The old timers remember at one time, we had a lot of swamps and what have you, and bed in their innumerable design. So this is a good commercial opportunity, so let us go and create, peat farms. Well, we worked with the council at the time, and this all happened before me, but I've heard it so many times, I feel like I was there. That when we went into each one of the properties, it got so confusing. Half of it was owned by him, half of it by them. They had we had land people going crazy trying to figure out who owns the different swamps. So we gave that up. But I also want to recognize, as Cindy did, some of the great people who worked on that board, a number of which are no longer with us, such as Elliot Talbot, Mary Donnelly, and I'm gonna probably forget some of these names. Edry Dodge and Ted Martin. I mean, they put in so much time and effort to accomplish what they did. And I just felt I had to say something. I really thought I would have to give a little background, but Cindy did such a great job. I can't make it any better than what she did. But, we are still there, and we do have a problem today, Ben. And that is, as Cindy covered, East Earl's Wall, and the lack of funding that comes from the Rural Development Corporation that subsidizes that project. And we want to hold on to it because it's the only low-income housing project on the island, and probably very few low-income projects anywhere. But we are having a problem, and maybe one day soon, or maybe not, we're still fighting with rural, and I still believe that we can get them to cooperate more and cover more of our expenses. But we may have to one day come to the town and ask them for assistance. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't. But I want to let you know that, I believe, and our board believes, and I think the people on the island believe, we do need to maintain a low-income housing project. And I want to thank you for allowing me to make a few comments. Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? I'm going to turn over to Mark.
Hi, my name is Mark McGuire. I am the new chair of the Block Island Housing Board. So let me first say thank you, Cindy. Cindy and the board before me did all the hard work. And now we're just going to bring it to a closing on this development on the west side. It happens to be right next door to East Earl's Ball. And our objective there, and we've started, is to build 16 units in 8 buildings. It will be townhouse-like buildings, and they will be affordable based on the state requirements. I have a few things to go through, which I will do now, but I'll also be here afterwards to walk you through some of this stuff if you have questions. I'm not going to talk about the things over there, but there's some details on that side, including floor plans and some other schematics over there. But I will talk a little bit about what we're trying to do. So again, 16 new affordable housing units with 2 ADUs. There are going to be 8 buildings across from Ball O'Brien Park.
Mark, you want to explain what ADA is for people?
ADU is ADA, I'm sorry, not ADU, but ADA is accessible units for wheelchairs and disabilities.
Disabilities.
Yeah. So they'll be on town water and sewer, and if you've driven by that bit anytime recently, you'll notice there's construction going on already, and I'll explain what we're doing. We're going to do an allocation by lottery, like the last time the housing board did this. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to have a nice property surrounded by stone walls, so it'll be consistent with the island feel. So combination of sales and rentals in TBD. So what I want to say about that is that with the success of the 513 and what the housing initiative has done, we may, although the board has not decided, we may end up going all sales on this property because the rental market is being cared for by other initiatives. The board has not decided that finally yet, but we will in the very near future. Again, it's going to be affordable based on state requirements for area median income. We have the ability to go for up to 120% on that. And again, the board will decide that in the near future. And the sales and rental prices are TBD at this point. We're going to decide that in the near future. But I'll just say, I think the sales prices are going to be in the nature of 250 minus. So I think 250 would be the highest we would go. I think it'll be on the lower side of that. And the buildings are pretty straightforward. They're townhouse-like units. We're designing them for modular construction. We still are interacting with some architects to make sure that they look nice and fit in with the environment of Block Island. So these are just sketches that our architect did to give us an idea of what it might look like. But we're going to try to add appurtenances like porches and some patios in the back. So we're still working on that stuff. Full basements, 8-feet basements for storage, so that people can have places to store things as they're living there. Right now, over in the floor plans, and we can talk about this afterward, but all the units are designed as 2 bedrooms. We are talking with our architects about perhaps doing some 3 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. But we haven't settled on that yet. It would require some architectural changes. Not difficult architectural changes, but it will require some. So let me just say a little bit about what's going on now. So the picture in the center on that one over there is what the property used to look like. But if you drive by there, you'll see trucks, and you'll see roads, temporary roads going into and out of the property. What we've done so far is connect the property to island water and island electricity. Island sewer connections will happen this fall. The work will begin in October again. And in October and November, it will be hooked up to the sewer. We think shortly after that, we'll begin the actual infrastructure on the property. That is, creating the roads and creating the electricity and sewer and water lines that will connect each of the buildings to the town. And then we are going to release an RFP shortly for the construction of the properties, of the buildings. And we hope, I hope, that the construction of the buildings will begin early next year. So we'll pour foundations, and we'll get either a stick builder or a modular builder to begin putting buildings there. We are funded by both our own funding, but also the generous support of the Block Island voters, who voted in May at the financial town meeting for a bond that will help us build these properties. So that's how we will begin. And I think that's about all I want to say, but I will be here afterwards to answer any questions. And I'll answer questions now.
Sure. My question is, has any townwide survey been done among the people who live here year-round as to how many units are needed for moderate or low-income housing?
Yes, so there's a survey done 2 or 3 years ago, which is what we based this design on. What will happen next, though, is as we move forward, so we have a long list of people, more than 16, who are interested in buying units. But the next step is to actually get those people who are interested onto a list, into a lottery that will have the hard numbers of who is interested in buying one of these properties. We have not gone to that step. We've initiated this project based on that survey from 2 or 3 years ago.
And my other question is, I would assume there are many year-round people who don't own homes who either don't want to buy a home but would like year-round affordable rentals. And I understand from what Cindy said with these, people can put in their own home, a second unit, or build a small building for year-round rentals. Are those going to be enough to deal with the year-round people who want to rent?
So, we have been in discussions with the Housing Initiative, and that is I guess it's still an open question, if you will. But given what the Housing Board's trying to do, what the initiative's trying to do, and finances, frankly, that we will make that determination soon on whether we can go forward with some partial rentals, partial sales, or all sales. The one thing that comes with rental properties on this scale is management of them, and it costs a lot of money. So we will be using our income, the Housing Board's income, to finance some of the debt to build these houses. We haven't made that final determination, but we're going to take all those factors into account before we do.
Thank you.
Chris?
I think we should mention the website is going to have a mechanism to take in interest on people who are looking for housing, what type of housing they are interested in. 5 years ago, a survey was done through the Survey Monkey, and the ballpark spitball number was 42 rentals at that time. Those rentals were deemed by the response of people in the conference to be more preferable for rentals over housing. However, there's a need for both. In any case, the website that we hope to get online in the next 2 months should be able to give people an idea of what.
Sasha?
Yeah, it's been my understanding that whatever organization finances these projects, they determine how the houses will be given out. And I remember when I first moved to the island, learning that somebody who had just moved here, not even full-time, but had just moved here, won a lottery over people who had been waiting for years. Now, since some of the monies in this case come from taxpayers, do we have a say to create a waiting list so that we have people who waited the longest get the first option?
So we will work with our council to ensure the strictest qualifications for our lottery. And by strictest qualifications, I will say that it's my desire, and I think the desire of the board, to limit that to people who live on the island, live and work on the island. However, we have state law to comply with. So we will work with our council to design the qualifications for the lottery as strictly as we can. But I can't stand up here now and say it's only for people who on June 1st, 2026, who are residents of Block Island, will be qualified. I just can't say that.
I'm not clear on one point on what's driving demand. Do we have you quantified the shortage in affordable housing, or is this just being driven by the 2% gap, 8 to 10% as the state has established?
You know, we have a list of about 60 to 70 people who have expressed interest in affordable housing. And if you go back to the Housing Board's last lottery, it was oversubscribed. Okay. Now that was for different property, but they were oversubscribed. So in those combinations of things drove us to design this project. Again, though, I can't say until we actually release a sign-up for the lottery how many people are going to be on Now, Chris makes a good point about our website. We're going to have we hope to launch a new website very soon. And also we'll do some social media, both to get the word out on what's going on, but also to have people informally, at first, express their interest. When we get further down the project, and not too much further, but in the next 6 to 8 months, I think, we will begin that formal sign up for the lottery. We hope, I hope, to have at least half of these units completed by the end of next year. It's ambitious, but I hope that will happen.
I would always imagine that there's always more demand than we're ever gonna have supply. But I just can't picture that time not being here. But I had never really heard anyone articulate to have a viable community. We need, and I'm making this up now, housing for, 10 policemen, 20 teachers, 3 librarians, or, a list of this is what a viable community needs. Do we have housing to support that? Is that anywhere, that kind of information?
Our board does not have that information. But I'm glad you raised that, because one of the things, to Sasha's question, and that we'll work on for the lottery, or we'll discuss as a board, is to perhaps work with the town to set aside some of these places specifically for police officers, teachers, firefighters, the community needs. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but that would be an objective of mine.
There are folks on the island who are just above the income limits on the affordable housing. Where both people work and one makes a lot more money than the other, but they can't afford $1 million house. They can afford a $600,000 house maybe. And besides getting divorced, so their income goes down, is there anything on the horizon for those folks?
No, I don't think the housing board. So we try to stay at 120% of this.
What is that number?
Right now, well, in 2025, a few months ago, I think that number for a single unit was, the income was about 83 or 86.
So that includes a two-person.
Yeah, that's 100% AMI. If you go to 80%, it's obviously lower. If you go to 120, but we want to try to stay in the 120 range. However, there are circumstances where we've gone up to 140. But that is what the housing board is trying to do. There's another term called accessibility that is a little broader, and I think the housing initiative in particular is looking at that as well. But no, we are not focused on that market. Cindy, you had a question?
I just had the chart here if you needed it.
Yeah, okay.
But I think that we've had an ongoing dialogue with the state to be classified as affordable housing that counts toward your 10% minimum. You must follow a bit of criteria, the most important being 120% of your adjusted income is the maximum that you can be in. Because of the high cost of living out here, the higher cost of materials, construction, etc., we went not once but twice to the state of Rhode Island, lobbying hard for Block Island to get a dispensation. They increased us the second time. We fought for it. They increased us to 140% of income would qualify as affordable housing on Block Island. So we thought we had won a victory, but in fact, there were a couple of caveats there that they gave with one hand and took away with the other. And they said, well, we'll give you 140 as long as you're 10% minimum on island. And if you drop below 10%, then forget that, you gotta go back to qualifying people at 120%. So at this point, for us to qualify as affordable housing that counts towards the state's criteria, we must qualify people at 120 for purchase homes, to purchase affordable homes, and I think it's 80% for rentals. That sets a difficult bar for a lot of people, as you were saying, Arlene. You know, they're just over that limit. So that's where, you know, a little bit difficult. And one of the dialogues that we've been having in our board is, you know, Block Island has been in the forefront of having affordable housing in the state of Rhode Island. We have, you know, we've almost had 10%, 20, you know, for years. You know, maybe we build housing and we qualify people based on island needs and, you know, forget about what the state says and let them come after us. We haven't made that as a policy decision, but it's part of our discussion, you know, how much do we want to stick to that 120 and how can we get ourselves up to that 140, which is much more comfortable. So balancing a lot of criteria here and trying to keep the town in the best possible situation.
But just to follow up on that, so to your question about what's driving it, getting that extra 2% is not driving it. We're trying to get affordable homes for people on Block Island. The benefit could be to get us over that 10% if the town is if that's a goal of the town. You know, Cindy alluded to that. No one in the state is at that goal. No town in the state is at that goal. Does anything happen to those towns? No. However, we just
It's a good goal.
It's a good goal. But our objectives are based on what we view as the need. If we happen to get over that 10%, that's a good thing. So I'm going to hold it there. I'll be here afterwards for questions and turn this over to Jerry for discussion about the housing issue. So, Jerry.
Great, thank you. I know many, but not all. Jerry Noonan, and I am a member of the Block Island Housing Initiative Board. Robin Lewis is our chair and founder, and Susan Bush is another board member. I want to pick up on this conversation, just a couple of comments about kind of sizing the need, because that's something that all of us working on this are sort of looking at the same community, trying to figure out what the needs are. As Chris mentioned, the Housing Board's website will have a sign up. As that comes available, we expect to sort of market that. We do have about 60 people who have been recently requalified as well, getting basic information about their requirements. We did actually leave a little form. If any of you are housing interested here today or know someone who is, please take one of those forms and see me on the way out. I'll give you my email address. We'd love to gather as much data as we can. We know it will be incomplete, but at least we'll know more. That data will be particularly helpful for what we're about to talk about, which is individual homeowner initiatives that can individually create housing units for the year-round community. The visibility of a new project like this will attract people who can afford it and who are interested through the lottery mechanism. But as Cindy referenced, there's 7513Bs. Those are individual homeowners who have created year-round accessory units on their property. And we are, they at times are looking for people who might be interested in creating a resource for owners who have these properties to find somebody to live when they have turnover would be very, very useful. Block Island Housing Initiative is a 501c3, so it's a private organization with private fundraising, both from foundations as well as individuals. We focus on two different programs, one brand new, we're actually introducing today for the first time, one that has been in place for several years since the group started, targeting individual homeowners, who can build a 513, an accessory dwelling unit, or create an accessory dwelling unit on their property. To that community, we provide $50,000 of expense reimbursement. We do not give you the owner the money, but we actually will help pay their construction costs up to $50,000. And that creates a kind of a deed restriction for 15 years that the property has to stay within the 513 kind of qualifications, which is strictly year-round housing use.
It's not deed restricted.
No, it's not deed restricted, I'm sorry. But but it's a requirement.
Yes.
Yes, it's a commitment that the owner will keep it for at least 15 years. The new program is actually targeting short-term rental owners, people who have units that they are choosing not to leave in the year-round community but use short-term rentals. This borrows from a program that's been tried over the last 6 years, is in place over the last 6 years in 11 communities, similar to Block Island, somehow access restricted, whether it's Nantucket, Provincetown, or several of the ski mountains out west, where access to affordable housing in an economy that's driven by out-of-community forces exists. The program pays a one-time stipend per person. The program will pay $4,500 per person that year-round occupies what's currently a short-term rental. In that, the unit owner also will save now with the new application of the hotel tax to short-term rentals a total of 13% in state and local taxes. So another significant economic incentive to move from short-term to year-round. It will take away their marketing costs, it will reduce their maintenance costs, it will allow them to also potentially charge for utilities. So there's a significant economic and kind of aggravation benefit to a homeowner who's currently managing short-term rentals and leaving their units idle through the course of the winter. Several hundred families have been housed in other communities. We're going to, starting today, try to generate several new rental units from the short-term rental market that exists on Block Island today. If you go on Airbnb and VRBO, it's vibrant. There's lots of opportunities. There's a flyer with some information about that. I asked all of you who are here, for whatever reason, to not just think about yourselves when you think about these programs, or when you think about the sign up for people who are highly interested, but think about the people you know. And if you know anyone who's an owner who might have a 513 opportunity, encourage them to get in touch with us. If you know anyone who's doing short-term rentals who you think might want to consider turning that into a year-round housing unit, have them get in touch with us. We'd be happy to talk further with them. Like with Mark, Rob, and Susan and I will be sort of towards the back of the room. We don't have any fancy posters, but we're available to chat more about the programs and how they work. Oh yeah, so there's
We have 5 in the works. We have one 513 completed, 4 in the works, and 2 new apps. So possibly 7 units.
Yeah, and the consultant that advised us on this program, who's been involved in doing other communities, is estimating that we could get up to 10 additional kind of housing units.
And retention. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the program is one time, and that's how it's working in the other communities, and the retention data would say about 70% of the owners, that one-time incentive, move to a year-round model, recognize the financial savings and the reduced aggravation, and continue to rent year-round after the first year with no additional incentive economically.
I'm not completely conversant on the Taylor Swift tax, but I think that's also going to be a marketing tool for you.
Correct.
Because if people switch from short-term rentals to year-round rentals, they will not.
Remove you from the tax.
Right, they will not be taxed with that new tax.
So it's good time.
It's very good time. Yeah, very good time.
Can you explain the new tax, just so we...
Amy probably can do it better than I can. After if your appraised value is over $1 million, you are susceptible to this tax.
You're not a stay homeowner.
And yeah, you don't live in your house more than 6 months and 1 day. Take it from there, Amy.
Then there is an incremental tax that I cannot quantify off the top of my head, but when we did the math, in most cases, it was comparable to the tax that you currently pay in property tax as a tenant. So I don't know what the numbers are, but for a lot of people, that's how it came out.
So you're paying $5,000 now, and you live only here a few months a year, you don't rent it, but you're here a few months a year, they'll pay a tax roughly comparable to what you're paying to the town.
And you are paying that amount to the
in the connection of this is if you are doing a 513 and that's 10% of your valuation, you would not be subjected to that tax because the property is occupied by a year-round resident, or the part of the property. But that's still all being worked out.
Who will police this? In other words,
Very good question. We're going to start doing it ourselves as we monitor the 513 program. Robin and the members of the group are monitoring it. As I've said to the group, I would be really excited to have so many that we can't manage it ourselves. We need to figure out how to solve that problem. But right now we're going to get started. This consulting company does it for service. There's obviously other program that need to be monitored, so we're still thinking that through.
the Historic District Commission now has an application with a unit that's supposedly just for guests, but it clearly has a place for a full kitchen. So, but they say they're not gonna put it in, but what do you do about that?
Well, that's something different than what we're talking about, I think.
Yeah.
That's the town zoning, they have to monitor that. But when we do a 513, if we commit to giving someone a grant for a 513, when that 513 is finished, they give us a CO, we release the 10% that we withhold until they have a CO, and at that time, they also have to present us with a lease for a year-round person. And every year, they need to resubmit that. And we only ask for a 15-year commitment for the 513 program. At the end of 15 years, they don't want to do it anymore, then they can pull the kitchen out and use it for whatever they want. We won't police after 15 years. Throughout that 15 years, if the house sells and the new owners don't want to continue, then when that house sells at the time of sale, we get our $50,000 back. Or if someone just decides it's not working for them, they don't want to do it anymore, then they give us our $50,000 back. This is all just contractual handshake deals, basically. We don't put a lien on anybody's property because we found that that was a real deterrent. So it's kind of good faith and community. That's what we're running.
In the short-term rental program, half of the payment is made at the start of the lease, half is held until the start of the 12th month of the lease. Saying the lease has to be presented and verify with the homeowner and with the renter that they have been there before we will release the second part of the money. Similarly, somewhat on good faith, but monitor, not just here's the money and assume everybody is right. Yes.
Are the 513s considered affordable, or could the home attainable?
Yeah, because it's the same 513 rules that the town has. We're just we're able to be a little bit freer with the kind of thing we do because we're not connected to any government entity. But they follow this 513 zoning rules, so they should be attainable. When we give someone one, if we found that they were charging more than was attainable, then we would ask them to scale it down.
And is the attainable 140 number, is that the gauge, is that,
No.
do you have a number? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you both for the presentations. We're going to continue the conversation here, so on maybe an informal basis. So Jerry, I think you were going to kind of head over in that section there, and Mark, you'll kind of stay up here. So feel free to stick around and engage with either of our panelists today. And thank you all for coming. I hope it's been productive and useful, and please continue to stay as long as you would like to kind of have a conversation. Okay?
Thank you.